the group in charge of the United States, who are also the group that scream the most about communism, socialism, capitalism, capitalist good, communist bad, libertarian good, socialist bad. These people who are in charge of the USA, who scream their heads off about free speech, freedom to own guns, and so on, are the very same people who are going to censor the internet. I got wind of this from Abby the Spoon Lady and started thinking a little deeper about it because of her statements. That's what she's saying. She started with that this morning. She said, this is going to cause censorship because, and I'm going to explain it my own way now. So first of all, Trump has said to Twitter, you're responsible for the content on your platform. You're no different from a newspaper editor or a television broadcasting network. The stuff people post is your content. So, as such, you are under the same risks and liabilities as these other private corporations when it comes to communicating with the public. You are now being considered a public information service. Social media platforms are now considered a public information service in the United States. So, as such, they are governed now in terms of their content by the government of the United States. These are the people that scream about not having the government control private corporations. And yet, they have just now said, you see, I live with a Trump supporter. He likes to go on and on and on at length about how the government is not of the people anymore, about how the government is corrupt. And the only person in there, and those he handpicks, is the president. And the president's going to fix it. He's going to uncorrupt it. He's going to undo the red tape. He's going to clear out all the fog. He's going to drain the swamp is the phrase they like. And yet, what Trump has just now literally done was thrown an entire flippin' ball of red tape at social media. All of the social media. And frankly, it's going to shock me if the owners of these corporations don't either sell out and move off or just move their corporations to another country. They don't have to be in the States. Why are they there? It's just convenient. It's just where the internet sort of got going. And where a lot of tech companies sort of got going. There's absolutely no reason they can't be in many other countries. There are countries that will give them better tax breaks. There are countries that will give them more freedom. There are countries that will not hold them responsible for the wacky musings of every random nut job and moron that pops on into Twitter to have a say about something, whether he's the president or me. At the moment, and this is what annoyed Trump enough to do this, or this is the excuse they're using. I mean, that's the thing. I believe that their agenda has been all along to gain control over the social media because freedom of information is actually anathema to the current administration. Freedom of information makes it difficult to control the dialogue. They want to control the narrative. They want to control the dialogue. There's power in controlling the dialogue. When you control the conversation, you control the story, and now you are the author of the story, and you decide how it goes. And isn't that the goal? Everybody wants to write the story. They all want to have that magic pen that writes the book. And in that respect, the current administration is trying to do exactly that. So the excuse is this whole fake news thing. First, it all started with people screaming their heads off about the volume of misinformation, which, okay, let's backtrack to where the misinformation is coming from. because that's an interesting little thing too. The people screaming the most about free speech are the alt-right. And the alt-right are the people who are presenting the misinformation. Every single time you say that they are doing that, they jump in and scream their heads off like a bunch of baying hounds that they're the ones who know the real truth, and that you are either brainwashed or complicit in brainwashing. And they scream too much. You cannot sit down and talk to them. You cannot show them your steps like you did in college when you worked on a thesis and you showed in an essay how you got from point A to point B to point C all the way to Z. You can't do that with them because they stop at point B, drag you back to point A, and start yelling again. They are the least bit concerned with truth, is the actual fact. Or they are victims because they've been raised by the American public education system to have no reasoning skills whatsoever. And reasoning skills in America are there in spite of the education system. They are there because your parents taught them, because you are an immigrant, because you went to private school, you were homeschooled, but not from the public education system. It has carefully raised several generations now of people who do not know how to question everything. People who think that to learn is to remember. That memorizing passes for learning. That being able to recite data passes for smart. That an education is about being able to take in and spit out. And they tried to do that to a degree to me in school. But I had just enough social studies classes of various sorts. Social studies is an umbrella term covering, how the media manipulate us. They taught that in high school. I kid you not. In fact, I even had a teacher talk about it in one of my grade 5 class. Mr. Keene used to teach us how the media manipulates the public. He was one of the first ones to start cracking that wall for me. Interesting enough, he was a South African immigrant. And another one that did it was in middle school, and he was an American immigrant, one of the draft dodgers. And then there was a couple of classes in high school that were electives that I took, and those were Canadian. And then in university, I took more electives on crowd manipulation, public influence, society, social states, economic states, how society works and how people work, as well as a lot of psychology. I studied that stuff because it fascinates me. And the simple fact is, 80% of humanity is just running on emotions. They call it instinct, they call it feelings, they call it gut reactions. They got a whole lot of really pretty words for being emotionally reactive. They're not stopping to think. They're just reacting to habit. I crave something, therefore I eat it. What do you mean it's not good for me? It tastes good. I have a feeling, therefore I act on it. What do you mean that's not the right thing to do? My feelings told me to, and then I felt good after I did. This is how they operate. And they have moments of reflection only during idle times, only when they're given enough quiet time, say at the weekend at the cottage after they've been sitting on the river for a while, or like on the lake for a while, or maybe it's because they started meditating, or they've taken a yoga class, or they've got a therapist. But they only have designated times when they actually stop to think and plan, and then they will follow those plans later unless and until something really serious happens, or they've had another opportunity to chill back and think. But they're not thinking as they go. They call that thinking on their feet. People who think on their feet are not common. And people who think all the time are extremely rare. And it's an affliction to think all the time. Don't get me wrong. It is not a virtue in the least way. It's an affliction. It gives you advantages in some things, but it's a great disadvantage because of the stress that it comes with. I think the best joke I ever heard was, when you so woke, nothing's funny anymore. And that's ironically funny, because that's exactly what happens. You get to a point where you're like, well, that's not funny. You're hurting their feelings. And, you don't know that they don't have a disability, that they're just being stupid. They're just being willfully stupid. And like, jokes stop being funny. Not all jokes. The funny thing is, the childish jokes are still funny. Puns, silly things. That's still funny. That's the true humor. That's the honest humor. So Twitter is being told by the government, no government control over corporations unless they decide to. Twitter is now being told by the government. In fact, so is Facebook and Instagram. Well, are there any other social media platforms out there anymore? There's going to have to be. At any rate, all social media platforms with head offices in the USA are now being told that they must be subject to government control over their content. Get it? That is censorship. When a governing body controls your content, that is censorship. When I say something like, the sky has never been blue, it's orange. It's always been orange. The sky is orange. They're lying to you. The color you're seeing is the color orange. Blue is actually a different color entirely. If I was to twit something like that, Twitter would come barreling on in, because it works on hashtags and keywords. And what they do is they link you to scientifically verified, journal published, you can reproduce it science. Okay, the kind of science that scholars like. The sort of thing where anyone can test the theory and rerun the test again. Anyone can run the numbers, they can run the data, they can take the observations, they can start from scratch and repeat it, and it will bear out true time and again. That's the point of science, that 100 years from now, the experiment can be repeated and you will get the same data. Then it's a fact, and only then is it a fact. And until then, it may be a theory, but it will be a fact. And so they're linking to fact-based scientific evidence every single time that somebody posts about certain topics. And they're not, it's a computer doing it, okay? There's not someone sitting there reading your stuff. We don't have that many salary wages to pay out, especially with everyone at home. No, I don't think someone's being paid to sit and read I don't think they can afford to pay people to read the millions and billions of entries each day, which, by the way, is going to be an issue if they're in control of it now. So they set up computer programs to do the job for them, and the program sees anything to do with certain keywords that it's been told to watch for, and it just goes, boop, there's a link. And it did this when President Trump tweeted about the coronavirus recently. As it would if I tweeted about the coronavirus, whether I tweeted a link to World Health Organization or I tweeted a link to Reverend Jimmy Baker's miracle salve. It doesn't matter. If I put in that hashtag, it's going to put this bloop little link across. Pretty egalitarian solution, if you ask me. The link goes to verified scientific stuff. But there's a war on the intellectuals in the United States right now, because intellectuals are the people you get rid of first when you want to tyrannically oppress a people. They're the ones who can see what you're doing, so you ditch them somehow. You silence them, you remove them, you transport them to somewhere else. You don't generally kill them because you need them. Someone's got to do the thinking. So instead you imprison them somewhere where you can try and bring them to bear. And then any of the intellectuals who are willing to sign away their free will for their freedom are brought back out and made to think for you. It's a very effective trick. That's what that whole transporting to Siberia during the Second World War and the the Russian Revolution thing was. So you don't, and for years the United States have been, the social pressure has been driving the intellectuals to Canada. And then Canada has been sending back their intelligent but morally deficient individuals to work for tons and tons of money, being the brains for the United States, educated by the Canadian system, so that they aren't handicapped by the Americans' crippling education of propaganda. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and their subsidiaries are now going to have to start censoring. Seriously, they don't have much choice. They're now open to liability. I mean, it's one thing to, it's their lip service to no. The government's not controlling them. We're just saying they can be sued for it. You see, it's doublespeak and side dealing. They're not doing it directly, they're doing it indirectly, because they have the intelligent people they need to understand what they're doing. And what they're doing is bringing social media and public discourse to heel. All right, public discourse is being brought to heel like a dog on a leash. And because these are global institutions, they're going to be controlling the discourse for the entire world, more or less, as they have been doing since they began the hegemony over the English film industry. Here in Canada, we have struggled mightily under the juggernaut of American media to try and maintain our vision for society, our vision for what it is to be a Canadian, to be a person, to be a world citizen, for how people should treat each other and behave. Because unlike the Americans think, we are actually a radically different people up here in Canada. Much more socialist, much more compassionate, much more questioning, much more independent. I think we have a great deal more freedom and a great deal more security here. And we do it with a much different mix of laws and freedoms. That the states the problem with the states isn't that they don't know what they're doing. The problem with the states is that they've been assaulted by wealthy power trippers for too long. There's just too many rich people there who have very intense private agendas. And as a consequence, they have managed to reach in and corrupt. The Republican Party was originally the party of anti-monopolies and anti-business. They were the blue-collar party. They were the party that wanted more protections for workers. They were the party that the unions were interested in. They were the union party, okay? They were the ones that wanted employers brought under the thumb and citizens brought up into power. They were the ones that wanted to bring in Medicaid and all that stuff. Teddy Roosevelt was a Republican. And as such, they had the ears of the nation, and they had a lot more popularity than the Democrats, who were seen as conservative rich people. I know, but roll with me, because it was still like that when I was a little kid and first started looking at the United States politics. I mean, it took me a long, long time to even begin to understand the hierarchy of power, but the ideological split is, it's so stark. It's black and it's white. There isn't even an image in there. There is so non-blending. There isn't even a picture. I mean, you could draw a picture out of black and white, but it's just a white bar and a black bar. Ideologically speaking, there is no gray areas. There is no shadings. But they flipped. They flipped from somewhere between 1950 and now. They managed to flip it, and I know why that is. The Democrats were wealthy and powerful, which also meant that they were educated, which also meant that the intelligent people tended to drift there. Now, when you're an intelligent person, when intellectuality and sitting around thinking about things is your thing, is inevitable that you will realize that caring for each other makes us all stronger. That success comes in teams. That success comes in groups, packs, tribes, villages, not individuals. That nobody is a self-made man. And so you start developing a much more compassionate, open-minded, and generous point of view, which is going to draw all of the people that are trying to fight for the rights of minorities and the oppressed. Meanwhile, popularity is power. Popularity is power, especially in the United States. Popularity is power. And so the people who mostly just want power, intelligent or not, their focus is power. They have been looking at the Republican Party going, geez, if I get involved in that, there's a lot of power there. Look at all those Republicans, and they're all such naive, honest, trusting people. I know exactly how to play them. And so in walked these power brokers, these power mongers, into this honest kind of scene, and just chewing away for 50 years. One after another, like ants chewing on the cardboard wall, or mice chewing a hole in your baseboard. They just kept going. And they took over the Republican Party, and they are definitely in charge now. And that left all of the compassionate, kind people in the Democrat Party. And so, flip, the ideologies have changed. And the funny thing is, at no point are either of these two ideologies even begin to address the needs of the oppressed, because they're both still exceedingly weighted in favor of capitalists. And capitalists, as their name implies, focus on capital. And capital is what's known as capital is those things that you can consider as your resources. That's my capital, okay? There, got bird seed, got parrot food. That's going to keep me going for a couple of months. That's a resource that I have. That's my capital. If this artist ever gets famous, that's capital. That's something I could sell and make money off of. Don't worry, probably won't happen. It's just an old friend of mine. But capital is your money and your goods and your power base. And so a capitalist is a person whose primary concern is his power base, his resources and power base, himself, his own power, his capital, his money, his personal strength. A socialist is a person whose main focus is social-based. That is to say, the needs of everybody versus themselves. So you got your capitalists worried about their money, and your socialists worried about their friends. Hello. Those are the two. But these guys are being demonized as communists and control freaks. Meanwhile, these guys are taking over everything and bringing it under control. Who's the control freak now? Did you like Twitter? It was nice, huh? What if they don't move out of the USA and force you all to use VPNs to access it from there? They're going down. They won't last 5 years. Likewise, the YouTube and the Facebook. They're all going to become completely different things within 5 years as a result of this latest executive order. It has to be that way. It's done. Good luck. And I would recommend anybody planning to do something similar to replace these platforms, choose another country. And choose slowly, carefully, and wisely. You want a country that is not going to choose slowly, wisely, and carefully. Good God. It's not easy. You have to find a place. Like, Maybe Sealandia off the coast of England. Are they still around? They were pretty anarchic. I mean, really, yeah, and they are. They host anarchy platform servers. That's right. And because they don't obey, they get blocked in some countries. That's what's going to happen in the USA. You're either going to toe the American line or you're going to be blocked. Just like China. And and certain Islamic states as well do the same thing. Good luck, guys. You better get cracking and building some crosses because you're going to be in a Christian country soon.